Good evening. I'd like to call our meeting to order. And Mr. Parker, would you like to jump in and?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
And do our awards and recognitions.
All right. So tonight we have Miss Diana Shea with us, and she's going to serve as an interpreter. And Miss Shea, if you wouldn't mind to come up here and join me, please.
I'm loud. Everybody knows that.
Well, good to hear. I'll come around. We'll come around here.
Come this way.
Yep, we'll come around to the front here. All right, so recently we celebrated School Bus Safety Week in Scott County, and we all know that bus safety is of paramount importance every day, but this week is reserved as a time to bring national awareness to the topic. Normally we share a press release and offer a token of our thanks to our drivers in recognition of School Bus Safety Week.
Recientemente celebramos la Semana de la Seguridad en los Autobuses en el condado de Scott. Todos sabemos que la seguridad en los autobuses es de suma importancia todos los días. Pero esta semana está reservada como un momento para generar conciencia nacional sobre el tema. Normalmente compartimos un comunicado de prensa y ofrecemos una muestra de nuestro agradecimiento a nuestros conductores en reconocimiento a la Semana de la Seguridad en los Autobuses.
This year our drivers themselves wanted to do something to celebrate. So each bus driver nominated students on their bus who consistently follow bus rules and demonstrate the importance of safety every day. The Transportation Department selected 2 students from the list of nominees to receive a special reward. When we heard about this initiative, we knew we wanted to welcome the students and their families to the board meeting to join in this recognition, and we are thankful they are here with us this evening. Both Mrs. Vance and Mrs. Patterson, I think Miss Patterson's here somewhere for sure. I don't know about Miss Vance. Yep. I lost my place. They've said so many great things about our children.
Este año nuestros propios conductores querían hacer algo para celebrar. Cada conductor de autobús nominó a estudiantes en su autobús que seguían constantemente las reglas del autobús y demuestran la importancia de la seguridad todos los días. El Departamento de Transporte seleccionó a 2 estudiantes de la lista de nominados para recibir un premio especial. Cuando nos enteramos de esta iniciativa, supimos que queríamos dar la bienvenida a los estudiantes y sus familias a la reunión de la Junta para unirse a este reconocimiento y estamos agradecidos de que estén con nosotros aquí esta noche. Tanto la señora Vance como la señora Patterson dijeron tantas cosas maravillosas sobre sus hijos, sobre los niños.
The safety of our students is our first priority, and as superintendent, I am so proud that our drivers keep our students safe on the roads and work to build positive relationships with them as well. We invited the drivers too, and are so thankful that Mr. Boatwright, there you are, sir. Yes, Mr. Boatwright is here with us today. I'm going to recognize each student and ask that the principal and driver come up with them for a photo afterwards if they are in attendance. Parents, please feel free to get close enough for a good picture if you would like as well.
La seguridad de nuestros estudiantes es nuestra primera prioridad y como superintendiente estoy muy orgulloso de que nuestros conductores mantengan a nuestros estudiantes seguros en las carreteras y también trabajen para construir relaciones positivas con ellos. También invitamos a los pilotos y estamos muy agradecidos de que uno de los 2 pudieron estar con nosotros. Voy a reconocer a cada estudiante y pedir que el director y el conductor los acompañen para una foto después de que estén aquí. Padres, por favor, siéntense libres de acercarse lo suficiente para tomar una buena foto si lo desean.
First, we have Aubrey Mack from Lemons Mill Elementary School. Hey, come on.
Luego tenemos a Aubrey Mack de la escuela primaria de Lemons Mill.
Aubrey's a 4th grade student. She's always thinking of others. She is a bright light in other people's day and can make anyone laugh or smile. Her classmates know that when they are having a bad day or feeling down, Aubrey is always there to cheer them up and make them feel good about themselves again. She was recently recognized for displaying empathy, the character trait of the month, at Lemons Mill. Aubrey rides bus number 1803 and was nominated for the Bus Safety Award by her bus driver, Bernard Boatwright. Mr. Boatwright applauds her good decision-making, awareness of bus safety, and how thoughtful she is to consider the safety and well-being of others on the bus. He appreciates her kindness and respectful nature. Good job, Aubrey, and thank you so much for helping us keep the bus safe. And I have for you a coin. Put this down real quick.
While you do that, I'm going to pass this down. Aubrey es una estudiante de 4º grado. Siempre está pensando en los demás. Ella es una luz brillante en el día de otras personas y puede hacer reír o sonreír a cualquiera. Sus compañeros de clase saben que cuando tienen un mal día o se sienten deprimidos, Aubrey siempre está ahí para animarlos y hacerlos sentir bien consigo mismos nuevamente. Reciente fue reconocida por mostrar empatía, el rasgo de carácter de la escuela de Lemons Mill. Aubrey viaja en el autobús número 1803 y el conductor del autobús, Bernard Boatwright, la nominó para el premio a la seguridad en el autobús. El señor Boatwright aplaude su buena toma de decisiones, su conciencia sobre la seguridad en el autobús y lo atenta que es al considerar la seguridad y el bienestar de los demás en el autobús. Aprecia su amabilidad y su naturaleza respetuosa. Buen trabajo, Aubrey. Muchas gracias por ayudar a mantener su autobús seguro.
Thank you, Mr. Boatwright. Yeah, Mr. Boatwright, I've known Mr. Boatwright since you came to the district. I think we kind of both came together about that same time. So, yep, he's been a great driver for us, and on top of just making sure kids get to school safe, I appreciate the fact that he's willing to share with us about the students that are on the bus, that are doing what they need to be doing and being good moms.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have Alex Chavez. Alex Chavez is a, come on up. Let's give you a clap. Let's give you a clap. I'm going to share a little bit about you. Alex Chavez is a 5th grade student at Creekside. Principal Carrie Patterson describes him as incredible. He is a good friend to all, helps younger students around the building, and is a role model, always setting a good example for his peers. He rides bus 106, and driver Betty Link agrees with Mrs. Patterson. She also commented on how helpful and kind Alex is on the bus. She nominated him for the Bus Safety Award because he always follows the bus rules and is respectful and personable with everyone on the bus. Alex creates a positive environment for his fellow students on the bus, and both Mrs. Link and Mrs. Patterson appreciate his leadership and thoughtfulness. Great job, Alex. We are so proud of you. Let's hear it for Alex.
Alex Chávez es un estudiante de 5º grado en Creekside. La directora Carrie Patterson lo describe como increíble. Es un buen amigo de todos, ayuda a los estudiantes más jóvenes en el edificio y es un modelo a seguir que siempre da un buen ejemplo a sus compañeros. Viaja en el autobús número 106 y la conductora Betty Slink está de acuerdo con la señora Patterson. También comentó lo servicial y amable que es Alex en el autobús. Ella lo nominó para el premio de seguridad en el autobús porque siempre sigue las reglas y es respetuoso y agradable con todos en el autobús. Alex cría un ambiente positivo para sus compañeros en el autobús y tanto la señora Slate como la señora Patterson aprecian su liderazgo y consideración. Buen trabajo, Alex. Estamos muy orgullosos de ti.
And I want to apologize for stepping away. I was up in Gina's office going over the monthly bills, had questions and lost my time.
I was worried about your safety, that's all.
No, digging into bills, having too much fun.
Oh, yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you.
And again, I love this for the fact that, you know, this was something that our transportation department on their own came up with. You know, they told me, hey, this is what we're doing. This wasn't a, you know, hey, we need to come up with, so this is, they decided, hey, let's do this. And I mean, just home run out of the park. So, pretty good. I've got one last recognition that I wanted to do real quick, if you don't mind, Miss Madam Chair. So we had one of our own who was recognized by the Facilities Management Magazine that all school facility managers are a part of and understand the importance of. And that is that our own Dwayne Ellison was named the inaugural Facility Champion of 2022. And he could have tried to make a play for going to Las Vegas to get his award, but instead we've got things going on here. But he will be featured in their magazine, and again, we wanted to just take this time to present with Mr. Ellison with Everybody gets a picture.
Maybe two.
He thought it was a hoax when he found out he won. He thought it was a hoax. He wanted to try, or maybe he was trying to skirt it all together. I don't know. So, all right, that's no more surprises.
All good, all good. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and to the students and our bus department. Thank you so much. Number 4, agenda approval.
Second.
All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 5, public comment. No public comment. Moving right along. Number 6, consent agenda items 6A through H.
I actually have a question.
Okay?
I know we hardly ever do.
Sure.
I noticed that we have a donation this month from someone that just says private donor. And I personally have a problem with it. I just didn't, I kind of thought part of the reason why we have to approve it is, I mean, not that I think some Russian, you know, entity infiltrating our school system by making financial donations, but I just didn't know, I guess that's kosher?
Gina?
I have that up in my office. If you would like to know the person, I'll be happy to share
Okay,
that with you.
that
They
person-
wanted to remain anonymous.
Okay, just wanted to give specifics on anything we had.
I think as long as they fit in the policy, if I remember
Right, I guess
right.
we assume Gina's
And
making
she-
sure that's
Yeah.
square and
Yeah.
then from there, okay, yeah. I just was curious.
Okay? All good? Do I have a first and second?
Move to approve.
All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 7, approve the proposed 2023 District Facility Plan, DFP, as submitted by the local planning committee.
On that real quick too, I'll tell you, historic, in that the involvement we had with the Department of Education on this has been the best we've seen, I guess, would be the best way I never describe it. Gary Least and I have always had a really good working relationship, but I mean, I could not say enough nice things about him through this process, because he's kept us on time. We gave him our timeline and said, hey, here's what we're trying to do here, and you know, he hit the mark every time. So we've been able to stay on track to provide you with this. As a local planning committee, we did foresee the possibility that they would in fact recommend striking the windows from line 1. And we wondered, because it has been approved as a BG1, even though we haven't really acted on it. And that's what he justified it as, and we've already approved that project for you all. You can't put it on here twice. So that's why he asked that we remove that, and that's what's in there as the proposed revisions. But that's also, you know, we put the GMS, restroom, and concessions, and that remains. And the only kind of change we made to that was that he just wanted us to delineate because it is tied to athletics, and because the only reason they allow athletics to be online one right now is because of House Bill 678. There's a little blurb in red you'll see that says HB 678 right at the beginning of that project. And so that's, again, those are the kinds of changes that we initially really have with him. Maybe he's, there's it's a lot of procedural kind of things. Some things on there, they're asking, well, could you tweak the square footage to include this or that? Or they're like, oh, well, you need to look at the schedule of values for what we're saying the cost would be for said project of that size. Frankly, I've told Tony, whenever me and Tony are talking about those numbers, I could care less, because I never look at those numbers, because we all know it's never, ever remotely close to what those numbers say. So, at any rate, that's kind of what it is. At one point, I think, further on down, we talk about trying to acquire that easement between this property and the bus compound property, and we put that the cost would be unknown. They just asked us to come up with a figure, and kind of like I said, I'm not too worried about whatever number we throw in there, because it doesn't matter. It'll be what it would need to be for that to happen, and it'll either happen or it won't happen. So, but if you got any questions about it, I don't want anybody to go away from this, because what happens after this, the next item is to appoint a hearing officer, because what would happen is we would take this, and if you all approve it, it'll go to the Department of Ed again. They look at it again, then they send us the hearing packet. We've got a hearing scheduled for right before the December 8th, the December meeting, the regular December meeting for us here. So we would have the hearing, and then after that point, we're pretty much smooth sailing. Then they would approve this at their, I think, February meeting. And they want 45 days or 60 days, I think it's 45, lead time. So that's why we've got to have all this ducks in a row before February. So.
I like the 2B
The
real well, yeah, that I was pretty excited about it, and have been since kind of talked about that.
Yeah.
But I did have one question.
Sure.
And it's not a monster deal, but I was just curious about where we're moving with the new high school, about the middle school being where it's at, if that's the way I'm reading that.
With the middle school being where it's
Or
at.
Scott Middle being listed pretty far down on the
Well, but so I'm glad you brought that up, because that's probably helpful for anybody that's looking at this. Just as a reminder, that's why so I'm glad you brought that up, Kevin. Just as a reminder, the way this generally works is, whatever you got on line item 1, if it's in 1A, B, C, D, E, or F, that has to happen before it essentially unlocks your ability to do anything else. Once we've done that, which again we plan to do this summer, then at that point, it doesn't matter if it's listed as a 2A or if it's listed as a 2E. Yeah, or third, whatever. At that point, everything's fair game.
I'm good with you.
So does that make sense? So some of why it might have fell in a different place doesn't mean it's a lower priority. It just means for organizational purposes, that's where they
I
put it.
still like to be good though.
Well,
2C number 1.
mhm. So that one was one, they just said that had, we weren't allowed to put that on there as a project. That doesn't mean that we couldn't necessarily do it. That's referring to the current Phoenix building. And again, that,
We're talking about demolition.
the potential, yeah. And again, doesn't have to happen at any point, but they're saying that it doesn't have to be on there for us to want it.
For us to do it, I'm not gonna get there for a
Okay. Any other questions? Do I have a motion? All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 8, approve Superintendent Parker as a hearing officer for the 2023 District Facility Planning DFP process. All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 9, approve consent to an annexation agreement between the City of Georgetown and the Scott County Board of Education. All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 10, student achievement report. Good evening.
Good evening. So to give you an update on our student achievement report, first we're going to talk a little bit about CDIP and CSIP processes, and then we are going to talk about the updates with our schools that were given the label of TSI for those subgroup populations, and talk about the work that we've been doing thus far. Fortunately for me, walking into this position, the team and committee that did the CDIP last year did a great job of doing a true strategic plan. So they actually put together a 3-year plan. And so at this point, what we have done is, obviously they had reviewed that CDIP for year 1 every quarter and monitored our goals. And so now that we are moving forward with year 2, the next step is just to pull that committee together, which Susan is on, and just look at the goals that were written for year 2, look at the goals that were achieved or maybe not achieved in year 1, and just make some quick revisions and review that, and just to move forward. So it's not a true full-in development because they did all that front work. It's just making sure that we still want those goals and objectives for year 3. There are some minor adjustments that we do need to make sure that our schools with TSI label are addressed in that plan. And that's making sure that those subgroups are addressed as well. So Susan, that meeting will be coming up at the beginning of December. On here it says the 1st, we're looking at the 6th. And so I wanted to get you before you walked in here, but you had a fun session with Gina on this. So, but anyway, yeah, so we'll come together and just see what adjustments, and that will be coming to you all here at the board for the December meeting. Also, the CSIPs are school level improvement plans that all of our principals and their teams are working on now. Same process. They followed the district's model that they put in place last year and did a 3-year strategic plan. So they too are looking at what they wrote in for year 1, where they are on their goals, looking at what they want to do or what they wrote in for year 2, and doing some adjustments or review of those. So they too, if they have a TSI label, also have to have specific goals aligned to those subgroups, and those will also be here for your all's approval at the December meeting. So we will go through that process. Do you all have any questions on the CSIP or CDIP? Awesome. And then the TSI work. So our schools that were labeled TSI because of that subgroup that performed in the bottom 15th percentile in the state, we had a great working session on November 2nd. All of our schools came together. Their principal, assistant principal, counselors, their special education leads, and their ELL teacher came to the table. We really took a deep dive into the data, not only just for those subgroups, but at the school as a whole. Their action steps, they came together and created an action plan. But one of the key pieces that we wanted to do is make sure that we're not just targeting the subgroups that scored within that area, because we also had other subgroups that scored poorly. They also identified those subgroups and are also addressing them. So we're trying to work proactively than reactively to make sure that we're addressing all of those students. So they have a action plan that they walked away with, and then the next step is we will meet monthly and we will review their data, look at the progress where they are on those action plans, and then they will determine the next 30 days so that they can get towards their long-term goals of course, making sure that they are providing educational opportunities for all students, and of course, making sure that our schools are the best in Kentucky. So yeah. Do you all have any questions about that work?
Is this work shared with other schools, or is it just shared amongst the TSI schools?
Well, so this specific work, it is aligned to their CSIP. That's their overarching end goal, is what they want to be at that CSIP. And then they look at, part of our responsibility with having schools that are labeled TSI is for us to monitor and then also provide the supports so that those schools are meeting their goals. That same work is happening at the other schools as well through their CSIP. It's just not going to be as focused and monitored as the others. Part of their action plan is a piece where they identify what supports they need from us here at the district office and with the OSL team. And so already they've given us their wish list, and we are making sure that those are being met. Now, we are looking at all the schools, obviously, but the monitoring piece is more intentional for those schools.
And the reason why I said it is because I just know as a teacher, when some schools get a lot more support than others, and when other teachers or other leaders find out, well, wow, I didn't know anything about that.
Right.
So I just didn't want it, whatever you're doing, because it's great stuff.
Yeah.
We should all know about it somehow.
Absolutely.
Like, put it out on some kind of.
Well, and we
So,
sure, and we do that.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
put out there so everybody will
Yeah.
know.
Absolutely, and we do that through DLT. So we
Okay.
did the, which is District Leadership Team. We did that work with the TSI schools and went really in depth. But then the following week we had DLT, and we also shared that work with the other principals and gave them time to work on their CSIPs and to identify the goals. Because you're 100% right. We want to make sure that all of our students are getting all of the resources and needs, as well as our teachers. We just have a little bit more of an intentional monitoring system
Right.
with those schools. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
remind me, for us again, the schools that are in this category?
Sure. It's both our high schools, all three of our middle, as well as Lemons Mill, Southern, and Mason. So, but I have to say, I've got to give a lot of credit to the OSL team and the principals and their teams. I mean, the work that they have been doing to put processes and systems in place to meet the needs of not just those subgroups, but all students who are maybe struggling, has been just really exciting to see what's happening. And all students, even though we're targeting those subpopulations, those practices are going to impact all kids. Yeah.
And then remind me again, for these subgroups to get identified as category, I know they have to follow that bottom
fifth
50th percentile.
fifth percentile.
50th percentile across the state. But do we have to have a minimum number of students in order for that subgroup to even be
Yes.
recognized? And what
Yes.
is that?
Absolutely. That's a Robin question.
30
30. There you go.
30.
Yeah.
within that grade or that content, whatever is being reported. So if you're looking at EL, overall across the school, then as long as we have 30 EL students within the school,
Okay.
it would be. But if they're looking at, maybe they scored low in just reading at 10th grade, but if they didn't have 30 of that subgroup within 10th grade, then it wouldn't be reported.
Regardless
so it
of how many 10th graders there are, regardless of how big,
Right.
so it's not a percentage, it's just 30.
Right.
correct.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would like to say they, like for our schools who have ELL populations, and of course, I think all of our schools were identified for special education, they are putting systems in place to not just address, let's say that it was 10th grade, not just to address those kids, but to address all students.
Sure.
And I got to give them a lot of credit. They're looking at students who are borderline novice to move to apprentice, and the same for kids who were borderline apprentice to move to proficient. So really targeting down to each individual kid and putting the steps in place to get them to where they need to be. So it's been great work.
Are we gonna have any sort of tracking mechanisms? I know we always deal with this, each time the new testing systems and
Oh, yeah.
systems come in. Are we following the student, or are we just continually testing the same grade over and over again? So it's really more of a test of practices, and it's a totally different group of kids each time. Because we're talking about 30 students, you could luck into one year where you've got 5 or 6 students in that subgroup who are just happen to be brilliant, and your scores look fabulous, and then the next year, those brilliant kids aren't the ones being tested, and your scores drop, and everybody's looking at the teacher, and the teacher's going, well, I did the exact same thing.
You're exactly right, 100%. And so obviously the state's system does not do that. It's
Sure, no, I
little
know
snapshots,
that, yeah.
little snapshots.
For us to be able to really see if we're
Right.
making a difference in
Yep.
what we're doing with the same set of kids, or if.
Right.
I know I'm reaching for the stars.
Oh, no, that's okay, because your stars are also my stars. Because Robin and I and Deborah and Paul actually just had this exact same conversation. Because, obviously we have MAC data, which is, traditional. It does give a predictor of whether they're proficient, novice, apprentice. But one of the things that we're wanting to look at is really looking at how we are benchmarking our students so that we can, whether they take the test when they're in 3rd grade and then they don't take, 3rd grade's a bad example. Let's say they take science in 4th grade. Well, they don't take science again until 7th grade. So what system do we have in place where we're looking at their science scores every year?
Right,
And
4 years later, I mean, you're back to
Exactly.
whose fault is it, right?
Exactly. And then sometimes, like right now, if they're in high school and, they took the test in reading and math this past year, they're going to have the ACT, but after that, they don't ever get assessed again. And is that fair? Are we meeting the needs of those kids to not continually address their reading and math needs beyond whenever the assessment system ends for Kentucky? So we're putting some systems in place that are really exciting work. So that we're looking at kids and we're following them regardless of what the state assessment system looks like. We're looking at them and putting measures and systems in place to make sure that they are where they need to be regardless of the assessment
It's just a
system.
better measure of whether what we're putting in place works.
Yep.
Because with such a small group of kids, it just takes
You're
a few
exactly
to
right.
skew the numbers one way or the other.
You're exactly right. So we've got some stuff that will be in place. And then once we get that, it'll be really exciting to share with you all so you can actually see student progress on more than just a state of assessment that they took in May and we don't get the scores until October. So, but yeah, absolutely. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
One of the things I've seen throughout, whether it's deeper learning, aspiring leaders, work for TSI schools and state accountability is that Stephanie and her team are really leveraging how they are super intentional with setting the stage for, okay, here's what we're dealing with and this is where we're going, to where it makes it easy to empower others to want to jump on board and let's get this fixed. Particularly when I think back to, and I mentioned it a little bit, I won't talk as much in my superintendent report about it now, but, the TSI webinar and the initial kickoff day where we were talking to TSI schools, she set the stage, but she also set the stage in a positive way to demonstrate to schools, hey, this is where you are, and this is where the mark is for getting the green, so that they really understood it. It wasn't all doom and gloom,
Yeah,
They really felt hope coming out of it, and I feel like that's, it impacts, I had a principal talk to me afterwards, it was like, I just want you to know how much I feel valued in this district and how much I'm just ready to rock and roll on the work, so.
That's what I wanted to say, I appreciate, just because you sounded really excited about it. And I just know as an educator, when you're doing something and your scores are low, you don't feel good about yourself. Even though you're a rock star maybe the year before or a rock star in another school, you're the same teacher, but you just have a different group of kids with different group of circumstances. And that's what I'm just here to just push, because we've got to encourage our teachers to let them know that, we got to work together, we got to do this together. And I do appreciate the fact that you guys came up with the idea. They came up with their ideas. You didn't hire somebody to come in and tell them what to do. So that's good, because we've got the ideas. We just need time to work on it.
And one thing I want to add is we are so incredibly close, and that's one of the things I've shared with our principals, especially those TSI teachers. We are so tiny amount of points from being a high-performing school district. So don't let that label get you down. There's a lot of great work happening, and so making sure that they know that and that it's valued.
And a lot of it is accountability. If nobody said, hey, let me see what you're doing, then you may not even think about it. And now that you all have that accountability piece in, I know that things are going to be better. So, my pleasure.
All right, very good, thank you. Number 11, review anticipated calendar for the 2023-2024 school year.
And with this one, again, this is just a review item, so Stephanie, I don't know if you want to carry the weight and load on this, or if you want me to and you chime in, I don't care how you want to.
There was 2 great options, and I shared them both with the board. The community, there was a survey sent out, the community spoke very heavy. It was 65% for option 1. They seem to really like appreciate going back on later in January.
Yeah.
Everyone seems to
January
like that day.
January 2nd versus.
And with that, I think Stephanie kind of hit the nail on the head. Really, it's just a matter are we out January 2nd, or are we out March 15th? I
Right.
think that's kind of the
It's
gist
that
of it.
day, yeah.
So the only thing that I'm not sure that the survey captured, and I just would want the board to be cognizant of, is that if we went with option 2 and it was March 15th, we've got that day to play with as a makeup day if we end up shutting down and we don't want to use every day as an NTI day or whatever, we'll move the schedule back. If we make that day instead of March 15th, January 2nd, the likelihood of us, we're not going to know before then, so likely we'll burn that day and not have that as an option for a makeup day. I'm totally fine with, I just wanted that to be clear to the board that that's the only thing I can see from that perspective that, but at the end of the day, we've got NTI days and, if we had to move the calendar, we could move the calendar, so there's other things we could do too. But anyway, this is just review, so there's no decision making to be done, but.
Yeah, and option 1 is, they clearly, people spoke, it's clearly option 1 is what they like.
Well, I think I'm probably speaking for Stephanie Henry when I say as a teacher, that extra day of not feeling the stress and the recharge to start back in that second semester is really nice.
Yeah, I mean.
Particularly if you're a parent and you're coming off the holidays and you just, that extra day is.
I mean, I'll be completely honest, it was my idea a long time ago, and I was just completely self-serving when I asked for that to be on there. And we've just kind of ran with it ever since. And ain't nobody knocking it.
I mean, and it's defensible if something happens and people clamor like, I can't believe that's what you did. Well, I mean, that's what 65% of the 2,400 people that responded asked for.
I
So.
mean, the survey says.
Yep.
It says.
The survey says.
Okay. Number 12, amend the 2022-2023 school calendar.
And that just effectively makes, so the Friday that we missed was just a straight up missed day, no NTI, no anything. So to recapture that day, we would be making February 20th a school day. That's what that amendment would be.
Move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 13, approve agreement between UK Singletary Center and Scott County Board of Education.
Second.
All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 14, approve MOA between NECCO and Scott County Board of Education.
Move. Second.
All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Approve rental agreement between Kentucky Horse Park and Scott County Board of Education to rent the North Exhibit Hall for the Great Crossing High School Prom 2023. All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 16, approve 2023-2024 allocation guidelines.
And that's simply if we changed the year. We didn't change anything to the other year.
Second.
All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Approve custodial stipend for the 2022-2023 school year.
So we started the school year off, and I said at the beginning that we want to take risks, and I want people to feel comfortable throwing ideas out there, and maybe they'll work out, and maybe they won't. And this custodial stipend is one of those kind of deals. At the Kentucky School Plant Managers Association conference this year, Trigg County talked about the fact that they had gone to a situation where they provided a stipend to staff in the building that were not custodians for cleaning standard classrooms. We walked into the session, they didn't tell you exactly what it was going to be about, and when they launched in with this, I kind of was like, I don't know. I left by the end of the session feeling like it's something that we at least felt comfortable enough wanting to try. I applaud Gina and Dwayne for really, we walked through this in such a way to make sure that we didn't run into any kind of issues with wage and hour and those kinds of things. So Gina's been very helpful with us there. And essentially what we'd be looking to do, and again, if we did it this year, it'd be prorated, but for a complete year, we'd be looking at a $1,200 per standard classroom stipend for someone. And the way it teases out is, if you're people could do more than one. So this could be offered to certified and classified folks. And if you're a classified folk, most of our classified folks work about 35 hours. So there's 5 hours worth of opportunity there before we kick into overtime. The way we've got this teased out, they can potentially do 2 classrooms a day, every day, and still not get into overtime. So they would be able to capture 2 of the stipends. The other piece to that is there'd be a custodial supervisor stipend, and the reason for that is you've got a custodian, a head custodian in the building that is used to whatever their staff typically is. Maybe it's 2, maybe it's 4 people that they're working with. But in this situation now, they're answering to potentially a whole school worth of people, trying to make sure they've got supplies and they've got the timesheets turned in. And so to give them a little acknowledgement too, that they've got a little bit of an extra duty kind of tied to this. So again, Gina's helped to make sure that we took it through the ringer to make sure that we're able to do this in a way that doesn't cause any kind of issues for us on the pay side. And what we, again, this would require the board to approve the stipend. We're not looking to just dive into this crazy. I met with SCEA last month, talked to them about it. One of the people that was in the meeting was like, I'll volunteer in my school. But we ended up having a situation where it made more sense to use a different school first. So Dwayne has since met with their staff just to kind of say, hey, this is something we're thinking about. It would require board approval. If the board would be so willing to do this, how would you all maybe feel about this? If we do this, we would do it at Northern Elementary to start. And we would just do Northern this year. It would start in January. And again, we would just see how it goes. And if it doesn't go great, then that's fine. But I know me and Kevin have talked sometimes about, other options that we have tried or not tried, and this is just an example of recognizing that we still don't have the complete situation figured out, and trying to do that. So,
And again, that's for Northern Elementary, and it's for the remainder of the 2022-2023 school year, correct?
yes, yeah, it'd
And
be
then-
something we wouldn't start before January.
And then we'll revise, we'll take a look at it and pivot and go from there in the summer, correct?
Yes,
If it
and
works
so,
out.
and so I would say this too, because I know this was an item that it was too much to put in an email, and I felt like there'd be too much back and forth. So, I'm bringing this to you with plenty of time, where if there's an appetite to hold off so that I can have some conversations and then bring it back in December, we're not in a rush. So if anybody wants to do that, that's fine, but if you all are good to go ahead and launch, then I'm fine with that too. So.
How many custodians do you have there? At
Northern, 2 out of 3.
2 out of 3 are there.
Yeah. Most elementaries have 3. Only Lemons Mill has 4.
And that was kind of, we had a vacancy recently pop up there, which was kind of what made it make sense to, because that's what Gina's been very helpful about too, is trying to find a way to make it cost neutral, to where, we're able to say, okay, well, it's gonna cost this much per classroom, but you take the summation of that, and that can either be, because it could be too, depending how it shakes out, maybe we don't have enough people to take on a full custodial position, but maybe we only need a 4-hour person now, so that's kind of, again, there's wonkiness to it, but until we really just dive into it and do it.
That's what I was gonna say, we're trying to answer all questions and guessing the answers.
That's right.
Right.
In the world, and they know more.
I mean, what tasks are we asking them to do?
So, like, some of the exact details still need to be worked out, but I know that just, spot mopping their classroom, cleaning the trash off the floor, it's the biggest logistical change, and Dwayne, correct me if I'm wrong, the biggest logistical challenge that we're finding is in making sure where are they putting the supplies, and are there situations where some of the supplies are going to need to be shared amongst groups, and how's that going to go? So some of that we're still trying to figure out, but we're not planning on it being anything difficult or complicated. Like, for instance, I think Dwayne said in front of the group something about mopping, and I think that the current situation is maybe it's more of a spot mop every day, not a mop the whole classroom every day. And so there were some questions from the staff on that. Well, wait a minute, what do you mean?
Opposite.
Opposite
of that.
Oh, did I say backwards?
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, just there's some working out of that. But again, something different.
It's about 15 to 20 minutes worth of work
Every day.
every day.
Some of the averages we found.
What'd you say?
I could pay.
That's what I'm thinking, I did that anyways.
Right.
Well,
There you go.
Yeah.
well,
There you go.
And that's what they were saying, is like,
Right.
we're doing some of this anyway,
Yeah.
not as, as consistently maybe.
Right.
But, you know, basically clean off the desk,
Or I had
sweep and
students-
mop, take out the trash,
Well, and,
go
and,
home.
and honestly, that's one thing that, when Trigg County talked about it, that they found that, you know, you could say it's right or it's wrong. I think it's a positive thing that it became more of a school community where everybody was taking a little bit more ownership of what was going on in the classroom.
Right, I mean, like certain class periods, you had certain
Yeah.
helpers do this, certain helpers do that.
Yeah. And you know, like, because you'll say, well, that's some of the things you do. I can remember what I would do for my custodians, but I also know that a couple doors down, everybody wasn't doing what I was doing for my custodians either. So this would be, you know, and I also like too, because there are occasions where we'll have staff reach out, and like they're wanting other opportunities to make more money. And not everybody you know, from when I talk to them, not everybody wanted to do it. There could be some people that do too, so.
I mean, like, I was surprised when, you know, in the district where I was teaching, you know, if we covered another classroom on our play period, we got paid for that. Well, I found out we weren't doing that here, I was like, come on now, why aren't we doing that now? And here we are. But yeah, I mean, I always took out my own trash for
Yeah.
cleaning. I mean, I did that anyway, so that's why I was like, well, what are we gonna have them be doing? Are they washing and waxing and cleaning windows?
Is there a certain number that can have this position, or no, or certain number of positions?
I don't know the exact breakdown. We haven't talked about the exact breakdown, how many it would have to be, or if we've capped at that number, but essentially what, we know the cost of what it takes for a custodian at whatever you want to put is 0 years, 5 years, whatever you want to calculate it at, with benefits cost, and then tease that out by how much does that come out, and you reach a point where it's like, okay, this many classrooms covers that cost.
You broke it down per hour, I think is what you did, and compared it to what the salary was.
So it's not a function of where they are as a teacher.
That's what I was.
Correct.
Right.
It's at, this is the rate here.
Correct.
Yes,
And
this is it.
it's built off of, you know, again, we built it off of what a custodian, level 2 custodian was 0 years. And then, you know, Dwayne said 15, 20, we've done a variety of different looks at it. And, you know, it could be 15, 20, we're being a little generous and say maybe as much as averaging 28 minutes. So we've got it kind of in there to where it covers all our bases and everything Gina needs is in there, and nobody would be put in a difficult spot or a spot where retirement comes back and says, oh, no, I didn't do this right. So anyway, like I said, something a little different, but we're just willing to try whatever we can.
And it's only, the only people or persons that are allowed to do this position work at that school?
For right now, that's what we're saying, because again, we're just piloting, and we want to, you know, we don't want to introduce too many variables that become too complicated for us to track. And again, I'm sure we don't have it all figured out. I'm not saying we do, but I feel like I'm at a comfortable enough spot to come to you all to say, it's something we're trying, we'd like to try, you know, and if you all would give a blessing on the stipend, then we can launch on it. And certainly, you know where it's happening at, so you know who to ask to get some insight on how they feel that it's going. And I meet with Lisa Hanson quite often, so she'll be able to let me know as well when we talk, how it's going and what refinement we need to make to it as well. So,
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for bringing that to us. Number 18, approve 18A and 18B, Section 7 teachers for Scott County High School and Great Crossing High School.
One quick question. Skill trade teacher.
electrician, HVAC, plumbing. Yeah, and again, because we talked about this, but
I
I'm
thought
glad.
it was.
Yeah, no, I'm glad. I just want to, and I'm glad you brought it up, because I do want to remind the board that we didn't want to define that too clearly or narrowly, because, you know, like for instance, I can think of somebody that's very tied into the HVAC world, that's very tied into one of the specific schools. So it might be that school ends up leaning a little heavier on the HVAC. The other, I don't want to say they had to be, maybe they have relationships in other areas.
It's a good plan.
Yeah.
Step in the right direction.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
I will remind too that.
Motion carries.
Oh, I'm sorry. I will remind too that on this one, it's just asking for 5 each, but again, Great Crossing has a larger student population. We know it'll ultimately be 7, but we don't know yet, so.
Number 19, approve to create 2 instructional aid positions for Garth Elementary.
Second.
All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 20, approve to create 1 after-school care position for Garth Elementary.
Second.
All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 21, approve to create 1 booster paid Scott County High School softball coach position.
Second.
All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 22, approve student fees for Western Elementary School.
Just a question or observation. We've done several of these the last maybe 3 months worth of meetings, and I know there's usually one time a year before school starts that we approve all the fees for all the schools. But I'm noticing that it seems like we're playing catch up on these. And did something get caught up? It's the first year I recall having this meeting come after we've actually approved everything.
They
before school
continue
starts.
throughout the school year.
Right. And did we miss something, or are these new fees, changing fees? What are we
So,
missing?
Gina, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this a case where they kind of they're shifting from donations to fees? So they didn't ask for an approval initially because,
That it is a
Well, we had that conversation, remember, I was concerned about it when we did it, because we had gone, it went to donation, and then it was weird, that nobody liked the way that worked, and then now we're back to it being an actual fee and
Well, the schools decide,
Yeah.
and Western changed.
changed. In the course?
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, it just seems like. I mean, I'm not on a problem with it, obviously, I just,
Right.
seems wrong.
Do I have a motion?
Sure. Move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 23, review, approve athletic booster club information and agreements. Do I have a second? All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 24, declare items as surplus.
Move.
Second.
All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 25, financial statement. Gina?
I shared with you all through e-meetings, our beginning cash balance was $120.1 million. We had receipts of $7.1 million, expenditures of $11.4 million, leaving our ending cash balance at $114.7 million. Of that, $97.5 million is invested through our construction project, leaving our ending cash balance at $17.1 million. Any questions? Okay.
Thanks, Gina. Number 26, approve current bills.
Move.
All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 27, superintendent's report.
all right. So, this month, under Standard 1, got local planning committee meetings. So we had local planning committee meeting 1 before our last board meeting, and then we had planning committee meeting 2, and then we had committee meeting 3 with all the required forums as well. Dwayne had been elected the chair of the LPC, so he made sure that everybody's arm was twisted to make sure they know we needed quorum and they had to be there. So, but anyway, that's you've seen the end result and the product with that. I tried to make sure our LPC knew they had the potential for coming back, because that's what we learned this last 4 years. I think they came back 2 different times to address some changes that were needed. But again, just as a reminder, if changes are needed, the board is the one who authorizes the LPC to reconvene. So I did just throwing that out there to you. Number 2, Standard 2. So I talked a little bit about TSI webinar meetings, and again, that's been one of those things that I felt like it was very beneficial, got everybody started on the right foot, and a lot of positive has come for it. Reading at preschool, I flip-flopped on where I should even go with this one. I was sitting in the parking lot at preschool, and I had to decide, was I going to read a book about a floppy-eared dog, or was I going to read a book about all the jungle animals? And I ended up going with the jungle animals. So, it'd been a while since kids got lost in the book with me. But I had a really good time, and I really appreciated them and their invitation. I did get a chance to see, we put those sound panels in there, and the difference is, it's kind of amazing. It really makes a big difference in that space. Yeah, and I was shocked, and they were shocked too. It was on a Friday, and again, so it was kind of an optional thing. They tied it to the book fair, but the book fair had been going all week, and they had a huge turnout. It was, I mean, I talked to a grandmother about maybe coming and driving a bus for us. I mean, it was a good day, so under cultural leadership, I put NTI 3.0, and I put it under cultural because I know that, again, 3.0, we've been all over the place with NTI. We've been super rigid, we've been maybe super loose. Now we're in this world where we've kind of brought everybody to the table and we're trying to find our way with it. I don't want to say it went super great, but usually the first NTI day every year, we get a certain number of complaints or comments or questions. And I'm not saying our schools didn't maybe have some of that, but it was of the garden variety. It was nothing crazy, a few calls and simple stuff. So we felt like the time we put into, Scott Bruins, he carried a lot of water with that after Brent had left us. And the time we put into making sure we launched that appropriately on Friday, I felt like really helped out. The Scott County Schools Appreciation Fair, I was nervous as a cat that I was going to come out of that situation feeling defeated because, that was one that I know we've done in the past. We had a kind of a benefits fair. We hadn't done it for a number of years, and again, part of the reason I restructured the roles was knowing that there were things I never felt like I had time to do. Damon Stefanik and his team just crushed it. They hit it out of the park. I know Renee had set up one of those little fancy like picture deals where you can, it really was a very, very positive event. I heard over 300 attended. It felt like more than that. They had the entire cafeteria and all down the hall at Gray Crossing. It was a very positive event. Everybody I've heard from that participated or attended felt the positivity from it as well. So just a great all-around time, and it's something we will for sure continue. So navigating the impact of illness on students and staff and school closure, that would be under managerial. When speaking of illness, an old codger I know would always say, it ain't nothing a little moonshine can't cure, but I'm telling you, we got some really... Oh, okay. Well,
Don't be telling us about that.
it wasn't me. It was an old codger. But in this... No, I didn't advise that. But in all seriousness, we were experiencing a level of illness that we just couldn't handle. And again, ours was staff numbers. Other districts that have been closing, again, some have been as low as 74% in their student numbers. So everybody's situation is a little different. I know Frankfort Independent and Paris Independent both are out yesterday, today, and tomorrow. We on the opposite end of the spectrum, I'm hopeful that we will continue the trajectory we're on. We were at, I think, 91.34 yesterday and 91.8 attendance-wise today. So it's in a positive direction. I'm hopeful that we can get where we normally are because there might need to be some looking at talking to legislators about what do we do about acknowledging the fact that across the state everybody's down because everybody's down. I had a meeting with Kim Minke under collaborative leadership to really talk through what the needs from our manufacturing community are and how we can meet those needs, and that again was demonstrated in one of those positions that you all approved, and I thank you for. And we had a corporate sponsor meeting with SWORD, and I know George Lusby always used to say that Scott County was the greatest place in the world to live, and every time I keep running into people that just echo that because the corporate sponsor, the owner of SWORD, he works out of Lexington but lives in Georgetown, and really good guy, and we got it's the first time I got to meet him, and it was really neat. So that was a good meeting, and I think I don't want to steal any. I don't want to say anything I'm not allowed to say, I guess, DT, but it was a positive meeting in which I think his level of commitment increased. Let's say that. So then, KASA, a few years back before COVID, they had a human resources team that came together that created some modules for people that wanted to be a part, or maybe they were just thrown into and were a part of human resources for their school district. So I'm now on the human resources development team to help develop that out a little bit, flesh that out a little bit more, because there's a large number of new folks and figuring out what that is, when it is, and I really had a good time. Went to E-Town and got to meet with some people I know and some people new to HR that I don't know so well, but that was a really positive thing. And then was on KT's Kentucky edition, got to participate and talk a little bit about Handle with Care and the impact that we see in our community on that. And they did a really good job putting that piece together. They had several people on it. And just last thing I kind of say under influential leadership is just a heads up, but you know, in the months to come, be prepared, because I've got had been having some conversations with some elected officials about, like Philip Pratt, Damon Thayer, and Andy Barr, about some things that we might try and put in the works to impact positive schools in a positive way. So just good luck.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Board comments? Stephanie?
We still got business to attend to.
Okay. Susan? No? Kevin?
This looks like a lot of things in motion and moving forward, so that's always a positive thing. Never be afraid to try something new. I think Billy does a good job at that.
Wendy?
Happy to continue my position. So I got to do this.
Oh, here we go.
Got it on camera? Thank you for hiring me back. Always get excited.
Oh, my goodness. I just want to say, please forgive me, on Facebook with one of our favorite little sites. I did make a comment today, which I typically don't do, but I threw out there that we were going to approve our school calendar. So please forgive me, everybody, because I know that's going to be pretty. But anyhow, that's all I have to say. Number 29, we need to go into closed session. So can somebody please move to closed session pursuant to KRS 61.8101F to discuss student disciplinary matter.
I don't move.
All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Are you guys ready to do anything?
All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 31.
I would like to make a motion to expel Royal Spring Middle School student addressed in closed session for the remainder of the 2022-2023 school year with services and with authorization for superintendent to lift student's expulsion at the end of the 2022-2023 school year.
All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 32.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Yeah,